Got a countdown.
Good day, Paul. How are you this fine day?
Oh, it's a great day. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Paul, episode number 50 we're on today. We're changing things up a little bit. You and Mark have been participating in our education sessions over the last little while, and we're looking at our strengths and how we can best serve our clients. And we're going to try something different for the next several weeks. And you and I are going to go through some quick learning sessions to really bring home some of the learning that you and Mark have been doing. And really, the focus is on our roadmap to wellness that we have designed and developed and that you've been educating people on, but really going deep and deep on that content. So I think for the fun of everything we are doing and to keep things as crisp and clear and clean, today, Paul, why don't we go through the overview of the roadmap, what it is and how it serves. And why don't we start from map step number one? And we'll just focus on that today. And then next week we'll start on map number two. Is that a good plan for today?
Sounds great. Sounds great.
So, Paul, our roadmap is really been designed to help people make micro steps. We always talk about micro steps on their health journey. And you've said this several times. Don't worry about it being a big, long marathon. Don't worry about taking all these massive steps. It's really about taking these small wins. And really, the small wins are what's really going to get you across the finish line. And that's kind of the lens, the focus that we have used with this roadmap overview. Do you have anything to help people with using the map as an overview of a guide or a template to help them get through their health journey?
The only thing I would add, we're going to talk today as this is step one in a number of steps. But if this is something you feel you have a handle on, that doesn't mean that this has to be your starting point. As we go through this process and talk step three, step four, what you might find at that point is that step speaking to you. I could use a little work on this. Let me hear more about this and that type of thing. And so it doesn't have to be linear. You have to do one, you have to do two, you have to do three. What it is, though, as an overview, is a number of key points over years of serving clients that if you accomplish this, you're helping propel yourself forward on your path to be well. And so, as I say, to forward yourself, you don't need to complete step one if you've already had a handle on it. The other thing that you might find is as you go through step four, five, or six, or whatever, you might find you need some more work on one. So, yeah, it doesn't have to go one, two, three, four, five in order, but find your order, find what speaks to you and where you might need work.
Good point, Paul. And I think it's one thing to just reiterate what you're saying. It isn't linear, and you may need to go back. Like you may get to step three or four, and then go. I need to go back and redo one again. So there might be times you spend more time in a certain stage or another. But really, this map has been designed and developed to help add clarity, help add definition, and just provide you a bit of a method, a bit of a direction, a bit of a path on the way forward. So then you can see these micro steps and you can see these micro progressions through your healthcare and healthcare journey. So this map, if anyone wants to get access to it, you can actually get this by going to our website at weedwell.co/map. And you can download a PDF of the map. And we can as well provide you some guidance and tools and support you through that journey. So when we're referencing the map and the roadmap and the multiple stages, again, you can access at weedwell.co/map. If you're listening to this and you're not near your computer, you can always send us a text message and send a text to us at 705-805-8264. And in the message, just put hashtag map. And again, we'll send you the information to get you started on the roadmap. So, Paul, that's a great overview of the roadmap. And, we've done a lot of thinking about this over the last while and discussion about this. Maybe before we dive into the first stage, the first step, throughout the roadmap, we have stages. And the stages are journeys across the map. And the first stage of our journey is be clear. And what really is be clear? What's this first stage all about? What are we trying to accomplish? What is our goal that we're trying to accomplish with this first stage?
So the first stage, be clear. It's right in the title, and it's the idea of gaining clarity on your current state of health and figuring out exactly where it is that you're at. This might include medical conditions. This might include medications. It's kind of, we'll call it, all about you in the context of your health. And we've, dubbed the term health selfie as kind of being a core foundational point. If you gain something as a micro win, this would be a nice micro win, having a handle on yourself and getting a really detailed health selfie.
And Paul, really, our milestone in this be clear stage is like you identify, gaining clarity on your health selfie, which encompasses really where am I now? What am I dealing with now? Because we can't really gauge the success. We can't gauge our plan. We can't create a method and a plan for the future if we don't know where we're at today. And it's really creating that story of where we're at today and adding some real clarity and definition. And we've said this several times. I know you and Mark have said this several times. Every stage we feel is important, but this is one that's vitally important to understand as you go down the path. Often people want to know, should they vape or should they use a topical or an oil or an ointment or so on and so forth. And all we're saying is let's just pause and let's just see, where are you here and now? Let's get a good understanding where we are here now. Then we can start talking about creating plans and goals and all the other things that's aligned to your current reality. But we need to know what that is so then you can measure success. So really our milestone really here is really just gaining that clarity around your current state of health. Anything to add on that, Paul?
Yeah. So the idea, over the years in talking with people in a clinical setting, I'm here to treat my pain. I'm here to treat the symptoms that I'm experiencing from fibromyalgia. I had a horrible car accident before, and it's caused me this. I would say the average person is pretty good at listing their medical conditions. And the idea of a health selfie is much more than just listing what's ailing you and what you're suffering from. There's a quote that I firmly remember, and I want to make sure that I get it right. Now, it was on a podcast that we had done previously with a client. His name was Joe. And he said, when you've got a psychological or a mental problem for the first time, you don't really know you're sick, and it's hard to deal with something you don't exactly understand. So he could list something that was wrong with him, like something was amiss, something was awry, however you want to say it. But until he got a handle and went through the process of exactly identifying what's wrong, it was impossible to make forward step or make a plan on what the forward step's even going to be, until you got a handle of it. That's one of those things that really sticks with me in speaking to the be clear stage, we'll say, is just that idea of, you know, getting a detailed handle, not just a list of what's wrong, but a detailed handle of what's going on, and really, I can't stress enough the detailed health selfie.
And Paul, I'm so glad you brought up that quote from Joe. And interesting enough, I had the same one sitting right here. I was going to go on, and as you're saying that, I was like thinking to the same testimonial. But commonly, Paul, if you would draw a conclusion with me here, typically the people that would reach out for help, the people that would reach out for support in this first stage, sometimes aren't really clear on what it is they're looking for. They're just looking to go forward, and that's what you identify with Joe. And things were kind of fuzzy to know, and we're just saying let's take the pause to gain some clarity where we're at right now. But typically, the people in this stage are looking for help. They're looking to feel better. They're looking to move forward on their journey. They're just not sure how to do that. And really, it's the complexities with their symptoms, and it's really the symptoms that's associated with a chronic condition. And they're looking for some sort of relief, some sort of path forward that they can improve their current state of health, and they just want to feel better. And often I find, Paul, that people are just discouraged. They're discouraged, they're frustrated. They've tried several different therapies, treatments, medicines, in and out of practitioners' offices. The list goes on. And I know you've mentioned this several times. This isn't a 3-week journey. This has been going on for years for most people. In the despair and the discouragement and the frustration, we can't overestimate what that really is. And what we're saying is, don't rush into the next phase of the trial treatment. Really gain the clarity of your current state of health here and now. Because we do know that these individuals in this stage, they just want to find a solution to feel better. And they're desperate to get that as soon as possible. And what we're really saying here is, let's just take our time. And we know it's been a long journey. We're not minimizing the long journey. We're saying, let's just take a bit of a path. Let's follow a bit of a journey. Let's just follow a bit of a process that we can document it and understand it and make sure it aligns to what you're trying to achieve.
For sure. One thing that comes to mind at this point, you mentioned the frustration, discouragement, just the idea that finding a solution shouldn't be this difficult. You mentioned the multiple practitioners, which usually means multiple medications, treatments, therapies, surgeries. The list goes on. And these are the individuals that can actually repeat their medical histories pretty well because they've had doctors tell them about it for years upon years. And so, if I'm going to simplify a little, if you have, we'll say flu-like symptoms where you have an infection or something, you go to the doctor, they give you an antibiotic, you feel better. Well, why is it so easy for that? Why am I not getting better? And we tend to relate that, whether we bring our parents to the doctor, they tend to get better. We bring our kids to the doctor, they tend to get better. Why am I not getting better? And that's, really becomes a source of, as you said, frustration, discouragement. What we also see in this, and we've talked in terms previous, Mark and I, with depression, but really it's just almost being miserable because you've just been beaten down over and over again. When's the breakthrough going to come? When's the sun going to rise and I'm going to feel better, right? So just a a little addition, if you will, to that person in this stage, and quite often what we, really, they're quite sad stories, and it's like, yeah, I feel for you, totally. Life isn't the same for you as what you described previously, right?
Mm-hmm. So, Paul, if we move into today, so we've talked overview about roadmap and journey and where people are at, and let's start. Let's go through this linear. Again, people can jump back and forth as they deem appropriate where they need the help and support. But today, let's focus on roadmap step number 1. And just to add a little clarity here, we have 5 stages, and our 5 stages is really think of it as a school, right? You graduate grade 1 and graduate grade 5 and graduate grade 8. They're all different learnings that you've accomplished. So we identified that this Be Clear stage, really it's about gaining clarity about your current state of health, and our milestones really gaining clarity around that. But we broke the stage down into micro steps. And micro step number 1 is part of our first stage. We have another micro step, which is step number 2, which we'll talk about next week, which would complete this first stage. So our first stage is really completing what we call the health selfie. And this is the first step on your path to wellness using our roadmap. You can access the information, the tutorials, and the help and the guidance by going to weedwell.co/map1. And by going to that, you're going to get information to the tools that we're going to talk about right now. But more importantly, we're going to provide you some email updates to keep you informed on making forward motion, forward progress on completing more action items that's aligned to you, but it's really being mindful about time. So we really want to make sure that you're getting this forward progress that we're talking about. Again, if you're out walking, driving, jogging, you're not out of your computer, send us a text message, 705-805-8264, and give us a message, #MAP1, and we'll send you the information about this first step. The first step being the health selfie. So, Paul, we've done a lot of talking about the map. We've done a lot of talking about these stages, and I think hopefully by now we're getting the focus that really the stage is just understanding who you are, where you are, what you're dealing with now. It's about being clear. But we've talked about health selfie quite a bit, and we've kind of coined that as our little term. And Mark's talked about we should talk about trademarking that. But really, what are we talking about when we talk about the health selfie? In the view of this roadmap stage and one, what do we mean? What are we trying to accomplish here?
So, we touched on it a little bit a few moments ago, but it's really getting a detailed picture of yourself from a health point of view right now, right today. And as I already touched on, you can start with a list, but it's much more than a list. And so if you list your two or three or six or 10 or however many medical problems, issues, diagnoses that you had, that's a good starting point. The idea of getting detailed behind it, the selfie, if you will, is then delving in and getting into the details of how exactly these conditions affect you. Because everything that's going to have an effect on you is going to dictate what it is that you may be able to accomplish or what's probably out of your reach at some point in the future when we get to step 4 and 6 and 10 and whatnot. But it's really taking the time to get the detailed picture of your health self today.
So, Paul, we have some tools and resources to help people out with this. And again, if you go to weedwell.co/map1 or send us a text at 705-805-8264, #map1, we're going to send you resources. Now, one of these resources, Paul, is exactly what you're just talking about. It's a picture of a person, call it our stick figure, and it's to help add definition what you're just talking about. And it's to help add definition to adding clarity to your current state of health, gaining clarity on your current state of health. And I know you've talked about this in the past. If you have back pain, if you're dealing with migraines, or if your back is sore, your knee sore, whatever it is, add as much description of what you're dealing with to that avatar, to that picture of you, and give some really good examples of what that is. Because often when we get later in stage and we're talking about health goals and treatment, people don't actually realize that their sleep or their back pain or their frustration or their anger or their anxiety, whatever it is as bad as it is until they actually put pen to paper. And often we actually hear from people's family and their support systems going, yeah, but look at all these other things you're dealing with. And when you're in the heat of the moment, you tend not to really realize what you're dealing with until you can actually see it in front of you. And the supporting documents that we're talking about helps you with that. And I know you in the past, Paul, you've talked about like draw an arrow. Like if it's your left knee, draw an arrow to the left knee. Add as much, take some time and go through this and really add some real clarity to this. This is actually a really fun exercise because later we're going to do an exercise where we're actually going to compare this after you've gone down this journey, like step 12. And we're going to go compare where you're at. And you can actually look at it side by side and see how you're doing. There's no race to completing this. And really the race to completing this is the thoroughness and the details that you provide on your current state of health. The other important thing we're going to emphasize here is really add the definition, the clarity, but also date it. It's important you look back so you can actually start to see the successes that you're gaining from your definition that you're going to provide. Anything to add on this description, Paul, of our current state of health with the avatar we discussed?
No, I would just say I'll go analogy wise and kind of compare that way. And as we move along the path and we start setting goals up and stuff like that, having this detail, I kind of think of it as jumping on the scale day one of a workout plan. Having that number matters, or having the measurements of various parts of your body where you want to lose weight matters, as opposed to just saying I want to lose weight, but actually having the numbers in hand and stuff like that. It's one of those things where you don't notice as time goes on, especially if you really change your diet and you have a workout plan and this and that. It's someone else that notices it on you a month or 2 months later. Hey, have you lost weight and stuff like that? You're living the life. You don't necessarily notice it, and you get caught, like you just said, you get caught up in the moment to moment details. And I'm using just as a weight loss as an example, but it's the same thing with your medical conditions. And so that process of documentation, key. Uh, the other thing I would add, Doug, just to piggyback off that point, is we've actually done a couple podcast episodes on the things in more detail, if you will, the things that would go into a health selfie and what to do. And so, the previous podcast episodes, podcast.weedwell.com, 28 and podcast number 20 both speak to creating a good health selfie.
Awesome. And Paul, I just want to reemphasize something we've already said. This is an important step. And I would say this is probably one of the most important steps. And I know we're going to say it later when we talk about journaling and creating your plan, but really understanding where you're at really helps add clarity and definition to where you want to go. And we don't know where you want to go unless you actually know what you're dealing with. And I know we've said this in the past, but often people will come and they'll ask for help and support with condition A. But when we unpeel the layers of the onion, we actually realize that there's actually another underlying issue. And we've talked in the past about a primary problem and a secondary problem. Sometimes people are looking to deal with and support and treat symptoms, but it's actually secondary to something else. And really, this stage is really gaining that clarity, so then you can actually add some real definition what you're trying to deal with. Because we are a believer that less is more, and sometimes applying a treatment methodology to something may not be the right thing for you. And this is really about adding that clarity. Paul, anything to add on this map 1, the health selfie, and what we're trying to accomplish with this?
No, I think we've stressed the detail of needing to get detailed on your house selfie, and we've emphasized it a few times, both you and I. As I said though on the introduction, it's not linear. We do meet people who are very astute on what's going on with them at what time of day and how they're experiencing it. And if that's you, that's okay. Over subsequent weeks, we're going to speak to other parts of the map that might speak to you, and that might be your starting point. But if you're not there yet, no problem. That's what these tools are for. You can share where to get them again, Doug. Yeah.
So, Paul, I'm looking forward to the next 12 episodes. At least that's what we've committed to. Is you and I are going to do these for the next few weeks. Mark's going to sit in the back and judge our performance. But for the next 12 weeks, we're going to go through this roadmap step by step, and it's really about adding clarity and definition on your future path. So how do you get access? Well, weedwell.co/map will give you the overview of the map that we've talked about this episode. Today, we're talking about Be Clear stage, and we're talking about the first step of the Be Clear stage, which is gaining clarity on your current state of health by completing the health selfie. You can get access to that by going to weedwell.co/map1. Alternatively, if you're out walking or driving, you can send us a text message at 705-805-8264 with hashtag MAP1 to get information sent to you by email about My Health Selfie. Next week, we're going to talk about the second stage of Be Clear, which is all about medication. So tune in for that. And Paul, I'm just going to go over this information session is intended for individuals who are generally in good health, are generally well adjusted, are functioning effectively, and are not in need of medical treatment, including mental health disorders. This information session does not involve the diagnosis or treatment of any medical or mental disorders and does not prevent, cure, or treat any mental disorder or medical disease. Further, this session is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, psychoanalysis, medical treatment, substance abuse treatment, or the advice or services of a medical professional. It is your responsibility to seek independent guidance from medical professionals to the extent necessary. Paul, this has been fun. I look forward to our next one. And until then, be well.